So welcome to Naturals Nights. Talking to this. Welcome to Naturals Nights. This is a joint presentation between Wilderness Workshop, the Aspen Center for Environmental Studies, and the Roaring Fork Audubon. And we'd like to thank our series sponsors, which are going on this slideshow, as you can see. Specifically, our special sponsor of the night, which is the Gant Aspen. Without our sponsors, we couldn't pay for the travel for lovely speakers and things like that. So tonight, we are very happy to have Wendy Kiefover here at ACES. Wendy is a native carnivore protection manager at the Humane Society out of Denver. She has over 20 years experience as a professional wildlife advocate. Tonight, Wendy will be talking to us about a cat of many names. Mountain lion, cougar, puma, panther, but it's also a cat of many meanings to a wide variety of people. Even without ever glimpsing this elusive cat, the knowledge alone that Colorado's last apex predator walks among us brings out strong emotions. Emotions like fear, excitement, curiosity, anger, but ultimately respect. No matter what mountain lions mean to you, I hope you'll join me in going into this discussion in mutual gratitude for the ability to live in a place where large wild things exist and where discussions about said wild things are commonplace. I can't speak for all of you, but I know I wouldn't trade it for the entire Powerball. So, I would. It's awfully big right now. That's true. You'd have to split it 3 ways, though. So, with that in mind, those of us here at ACES really respect our zone of civil discourse here, and we ask that all dialogue be respectful and that you hold your questions until the end of Wendy's presentation. She has agreed to entertain as many questions as you all have, and if you were in Carbondale last night, you know that as well. Thank you for all being here for a special Winter Skull Natty Night. Please join me in welcoming Wendy Kiefover.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
It didn't work.
I was like, that's not me. There we go. Great, thank you. So I don't need the microphone?
Nope.
No? Okay, can you all hear me?
Sure.
Wow, that's great. No. Maybe I will take the microphone. Does that help?
The microphone is for the television, but doesn't amplify your voice.
Oh, it doesn't amplify my voice. Okay. I will try and speak loudly. Well, I feel like half the audience was here last night, so my jokes aren't going to work. You're going to know the punchlines already, but so it's not going to change very much. So it's going to be the same jokes. This is a mountain lion that my friend Dave Jones took in 2005 in Yellowstone National Park. He was at Tower Falls. How many of you have been there to Yellowstone, the Tower Falls? And it's just this massive, massive cliff face. And there's bighorn sheep right there. And the Yellowstone Ecosystem Institute was taking groups of people out to look at a peregrine falcon nest. And this woman got off the bus and she didn't know how to use binoculars, and she's just wildly scanning the cliff faces, and she asked the leader about this cat on the wall, and he's like, yeah, whatever. And then sure enough, he looks and here's this mountain lion, and all these people had been staring at this wall and didn't see it. That's how cryptic mountain lions are. So Puma concolor is the Latin name. It means Puma comes from the Inca. It means powerful, and concolor is of the same color. So I'm going to be talking about natural history, coexistence, and conservation. And these are all the wild cats of North America. So Jaguarundi, Margay, Oncia, those are sort of Mexico and Central America. And jaguar, which used to roam in Arizona and Texas and places like that. Ocelot, trapped out. But in Colorado, we have mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx. Those are our 3 wild cats. And mountain lions are the second largest cat in North America. So historically, mountain lions ranged, they were the widest ranging mammal in North and South America, except for humans. And we did a really good job of extirpating them. Where is my
Pointer.
Pointer. Thank you. I set it down somewhere. I'm glad it. So we basically have extirpated them from the eastern U.S. There is a remnant population of the Florida black panther. Mountain lions are starting to come back into North and South Dakota and Nebraska, where they've got, in my opinion, premature hunting seasons on them. So biologists have a term for animals that are active at nighttime. What is it? Nocturnal. And if you're active in the daytime? Diurnal. And if you're active at dawn and dusk? Crepuscular. Yay! How do you spell that word? Yeah, there we go. Not a Scrabble word, it's too long, right? Okay, so how many of you have seen Lords of Nature? It's a documentary film. Nobody. It's a great film, but it's all about predation and how important predation is for ecosystems. And I just love this quote from it. One of the great paradoxes of our existence, out of death comes life. And so I'm going to be talking about predation a little bit. I used to be sort of, it's like it's something that we don't want to hear about. It's like, it's kind of gross that animals kill other animals and eat them. But that's what life is. And they do it in different ways. So we have cats and we have dogs, right? So which animal has a larger head relative to its body size? A wolf or a mountain lion? Wolf, exactly. Because of the way they kill. So a wolf, they are coursing carnivores, and so they hunt in packs, and so they'll like hamstring, like in Isle Royale, they'll hamstring moose so that they can't run, and then it takes a lot of them to bring them down. Versus ambush carnivores, which hide and ambush their prey. So they hide and then they run really quickly just for short distances. And the reason, let me go back to this slide, is kind of an anatomy slide. So look at the lung capacity of a dog versus a cat. So which animal would you take on a jog with you? Not the cat, right? Yeah, because they're going to run out of gas really quick, and so that's the difference. So wolves hunt in a pack, very social hunters. Coyotes are solitary hunters because they mostly rely on rodents and rabbits for their diet. So it doesn't make any sense to hunt in a pack for a mouse. So yeah, and then links down here with a snowshoe. Snowshoe hare rabbit. Okay, so here is a mountain lion. Presumably it's dead or it's a research animal, I'm not sure. I just found it on the web, but I wanted to show you its feet. And they have fur between the toes, and that muffles when they walk, so they're very silent when they walk. And they have retractable claws, just like your house cat. And so they only put the claws out when they're at the sort of the last stages of running or to grapple their prey. And then they can also use their claws to climb trees. So this is a hind foot, this is a front foot, and when they walk, the hind foot goes into the step of the front foot. So this is a cat that someone took around Gallatin Gateway which is outside of Bozeman. And they just happened to be going down the highway and they saw this mountain lion trying to take down this giant elk. And basically the elk kind of took the mountain lion for a ride in the snow and never got it. But you can see what they do is they try to kill their prey by strangulation, either through the mouth or the throat. So, and this is a deer that was killed in Boulder, and you can see the neck is pretty messed up right there. So lions only eat a portion of their prey. Sometimes if it's large prey, they only eat a portion of it at a time, and then they leave it behind and they cover it. And biologists have a word for that covering. What's that called?
Cache.
Cache, thank you. You guys, if you were here last night, you can't give away my punchlines. Oh, you weren't? Okay. So this is grass, and they'll use other materials. Like this is ponderosa pine needles. They'll use snow and other whatever's available. So they cache the prey because. Anybody have any idea?
They want to return to it, or they want to come back and eat it.
They want to come back and eat it, but it also has another purpose.
Keeps it fresher.
Keeps it fresher, keeps it cooler.
Keep other predators, keep other animals off.
Yeah, exactly. To keep the scavengers from finding it. So, so Panthera, they have a project. It's the Teton Puma project up in Yellowstone, and they're finding it. It's really interesting. They also did a project down in Patagonia, and what they're finding is that mountain lions, they leave a lot of food in the environment for a whole bunch of different species, whether it's Andorian condors or here in the U.S. Black bears or grizzly bears, which is really interesting. So they're finding that that they're they benefit the whole ecosystem and all these other species by leaving prey behind, which is something that we've known with wolves since wolves were restored back in 1995 in the Yellowstone. So anyway, I want to show you this brief movie, and we'll talk more about. Maybe I'll show you this movie if I can get it to play. There we go. Okay, now I gotta move. Okay, there we go. So that was a mountain lion. It was on an elk carcass, and this is in Yellowstone. And now you can see what scared it away. Pack of wolves here coming down to usurp the carcass. So in a multi-carnivore, yeah, dogs chase cats. Okay, what's that other dog? Coyote. Yeah. So check out the size of the coyote versus the wolf and look at how fast that coyote is. Fast. So when wolves were restored in the Yellowstone in 1995, the wolves immediately sort of set up these home ranges, these territories, and the coyotes had to figure out how to live sort of in the boundaries between them. And the wolves took out 50% of the coyote population, which is pretty extraordinary. I'm going to play this again. So, and biologists have documented whether it's more efficient to be a coursing carnivore or an ambush carnivore. Which one do you think is more efficient? Coursing. Some people saying coursing. Ambush. It's ambush. 80% of prey pursuits by an ambush carnivore are successful as compared to 15 to 25% by coursing carnivores. So, and it has to be that way, especially if you're a solitary mountain lion, especially if you've got females and you're having to provision for those kittens. So did you see the cat go up the tree there? Right up there. So pretty interesting. Let's see. So there we go. So what did I want to say? Oh, so yeah, so coyotes are about 35 pounds on average, whereas an average wolf is about 100 pounds. A typical adult male, a typical adult male lion is like 100, 120 pounds. Females are about, 1/3 that size. So 80 pounds. And so in the home range of mountain lions, so male lions have much larger home ranges. So between 100 and 200 square miles, depending on prey density. Whereas females have much smaller home ranges, 30 to 70 square miles. And their home ranges will overlap, whereas the males will not. They're very territorial, so they're always vying for mates and territories, and they mark their territories using scat and urine and things called scrapes. Pardon? Oh, okay. So, so just like with any population, the breeding females are the biological bank account, and that is like the most important demographic of a population if you want to have continuity. A female does not become sexually mature until she's about 27 months old. And then she will have kittens just about every other year. So there's an interval. So she raises those kittens between like 12 and 24 months. And then those kittens have to disperse and find their own home ranges and their own mates. And typically the males disperse further, and biologists believe that is so that there's not inbreeding in the natal area because the females don't disperse as far. So a female will have typically 3 kittens on average, and you can see they have those beautiful spots and blue eyes, and they'll nurse for about 8 weeks. And these were taken at the National Elk Refuge by a Fish and Wildlife Service employee. So you can see the little spots on them. They're still kittens. And they need their mother at this moment. So we've got some coyotes coming in. Yeah, they got away, is what I believe. So this is a subadult animal, or, you know, it's at least 9 months old. It's still, you can see the dapples on it. So still, I guess, yeah, probably a kitten rather than a subadult. And then what biologists believed for the longest time is that these were very solitary animals, so that the only time that the males and the females came together was when they were mating, and then when the females were raising and provisioning their kittens. But the Teton Puma Project has found some really fascinating behaviors, and they've put out a lot of cameras, and they've developed a film with BBC. And National Geographic has picked it up, and it's called Lions Undercover, and I highly recommend that you watch it. It's a really beautiful film, and it shows how incredibly social cats are with each other. The bond between the mothers and their kittens, and actually even females are very accepting of other females. They'll even share a kill sometimes. And sometimes if a female is killed, she will even adopt the kittens of another female, is what they're finding. And one of the most surprising pieces of footage they had was a female and her kitten on a kill, and then the father of the kitten coming and sharing the kill, which is something that biologists never believed had happened before. So just really incredible. I highly recommend it, that you see that. So anyway, as I said, a lot of the females in the natal area are often related to each other. It's called a matriline. And so the young males have to disperse further. And so it's really important for mountain lions, for Preble's meadow jumping mice, for whatever species, that they have sufficient habitat, sufficient connectivity between these other just subpopulations. So if you think about sort of conservation biology, is this idea that you have all these little populations, and then there's dispersing animals that go to the new population, and they bring their genes with them. And that increases with good gene flow. You have greater viability, you have healthier animals. And so I think everyone in this room can agree, excuse me, I'm losing my breath, that we need to conserve vast amounts of habitat in order to have mule deer, in order to have elk, in order to have, you know, all these different species that we all love. And we have to make sure that we conserve them. So recruitment is the idea that once an animal passes on its own genetic material. And so for mountain lions, that means dispersing, finding a new home range, finding a mate, and having their own young. So really important idea in biology for continuity. Top carnivores are really incredibly essential for ecosystem function and for biological diversity. And we know that with wolves in the Yellowstone, there's been just tremendous amounts of studies that have been done that show that when you have wolves in the ecosystem in Yellowstone, instead of having these, you know, masses of elk just kind of hanging out in the riparian areas and eating all the willows and aspen and making that plant community disappear, that wolves keep them on the move. It's not just killing, it's the most important thing they do is keep the elk herds on the move so they're not just eating all the plants. And that has incredible biodiversity effects. So because they're not eating all the plant berry producing plants, there's more berries for grizzly bears. They leave carrion for grizzly bears. And because of wolves in the ecosystem, beaver have come back into that system. And then the water table has risen. And so there's more plants, there's more amphibians, there's more fish, there's more tropical birds. I mean, it's just astonishing what's going on versus Rocky Mountain National Park, where we don't have wolves, where we have elk exclosures. And humans cannot have the same ecological effect that wolves do. Wolves 24/7 are moving those elk out of the riparian areas. And so in order for Rocky Mountain National Park to have that, we have to have wolves back. And it brings the water table back up because you get beaver back in the system. And so biologists are starting to realize the same thing is true with mountain lions. So where humans are present in this study in Zion National Park, on the trails where a lot of humans went, there were very few mountain lions, but there were a lot of deer. And because of deer, there was a lot of too much grazing. So the stream lost the overstory of trees. The streams widened, they warmed up, and then we lost amphibian fish and a whole host of other species. So in this system, mountain lions are really critical for maintaining biological diversity and ecosystem function. And as I was saying about, the Teton project, same thing. So mountain lions produce extra carrion in a system that benefit numerically rare species such as grizzly bears. By the way, the Fish and Wildlife Service is poised to delist grizzly bears. So that's going to be another huge conservation concern. The states of Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming have already planned to divvy up how grizzly bears are going to be hunted. And so please get involved because they need to hear your voice. So there is a cost to mountain lions when they lose their kills to usurping carnivores such as black bears or grizzly bears or wolves. They have to get additional prey, and especially if it's a female with kittens. But that has energetic consequences of increased injury, for example. So, if you're getting large-bodied prey, the outcome is not always good. A lot of times mountain lions get injured, and it can be really tough. So just as we're learning how important top carnivores are in ecosystems, the frightening thing is they are disappearing from planet Earth, whether it's terrestrial or aquatic. And there's a very important paper, Darmont et al., that was just published last year, calling humans super predators. We are killing too much of everything, whether it's fish in the sea, everything. We have to curb our appetite if we are going to have species on this planet. And I think everyone in this room can agree with that. We have to be careful because we can overdo it. There is just more and more and more of us every day, and more of us taking up habitat. And we can't have endless exploitation. And I think everyone in this room can agree with that. And so Jim Estes and 23 other biologists put out this paper in 2011 that was just eye-popping, the trophic downgrading of planet Earth. And they looked at when top carnivores aren't in the system, you get this ecosystem becomes far more simplistic and less functional. You have less biodiversity, and that should be a cause for alarm. So in states where sport hunting of mountain lion is allowed, it is the major source of mortality. And this is according to the Cougar Management Guidelines that was published by 13 lion biologists. So there's a lot of mythology that drives this sort of idea that we need to exploit mountain lions. And this is actually a Colorado Division of Wildlife emblem on this vehicle. And probably in the 40s or 50s, you know, we're lynching the mountain lions right there. And one of the sort of the ideas is livestock competition, which, you know, we've got problems with public lands grazing. That's a whole nother issue. But anyway, of the 94 million cattle produced in the US in 2010, about 4 million died from illness, birthing, and weather problems. About 200,000 died from all carnivores put together. So I'm going to take these two data points right here, and I'm going to map them out, and that's what this is. So respiratory problems caused 26% of those unwanted cattle deaths. Unknown health deaths was 18%, digestive problems 13%, and not until right here, this thing, that's coyotes. That's the #1 cattle predator. The second largest cattle predator is domestic dogs. So you can see that. And then they put all felids together, which I don't understand. So it's probably mountain lions. I doubt it's bobcat or lynx taking cattle. And then wolves and bears. So, and then this was a hot source of contention last night. So everyone listen carefully. Okay, so I'm gonna get a drink. I did not make these studies up. I am reporting to you what I've read, okay? Some biologists believe that deer and elk are doomed surplus no matter what. There's gonna be some animals that die. And there's been studies that looked at if we kill predators, it doesn't bring the mule deer back. One of those studies was Chad Bishop here in Colorado. The other one was Hurley in Idaho. So basically, if you persecute cougars and coyotes, you're not going to increase mule deer numbers. That is because the most important factor for mule deer is nutrition. The most important factor for mule deer is nutrition. So if there's excellent nutrition, you're going to have greater mule deer numbers. They will survive and they will reproduce. Also, if you're overhunting, if humans are overhunting mule deer, that's certainly going to have an implication. What are some of the other problems that mule deer face? So weather. So in Montana, I remember when I was living up there, they had some really hard winters and there was ice and the mule deer could not get to the browse. And so there was some starvation. Or, whatever happens, anything like that, there's all kinds of weather incidents. Habitat loss, that's a huge problem here in Colorado. We've got literally millions of people moving into this state. I'm a third generation Coloradoan, and it breaks my heart to see earth movers. I can't stand it. There has to be an end to the loss of our habitat. Livestock competition, disease, oil and gas is a huge problem. Fire suppression, that was part of Chad Bishop's finding in western Colorado, is because of fire suppression. The browse has gotten too woody and it wasn't palatable or nutritious to the mule deer. And so we just have to have fire. Fire is hugely important to these western ecosystems. So this guy Hatton was published in Science last year, and what he found in looking at sort of predator-prey systems all around the world, that predator populations do not increase proportionately relative to the prey. In fact, predators are much smaller than their prey, and that makes sense. If you had too many predators, they wouldn't have prey, they're all going to die, right? So the Krebs cycle, what we've all learned in school. And this is Colorado. Do we have a problem for our mule deer? When we've got oil and gas wells and roads, and we have vehicles, and that is a problem for mule deer. That is a huge problem for mule deer. And then lastly, sort of this anxiety about we've got to kill predators in order for human safety. And it's actually the other way around. Predators have to fear us because we do a really good job of wiping them out. And so Dr. Ken Logan, who's a researcher for Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the author of Desert Puma, which is, just like this amazing tome about mountain lion biology, wrote, or actually was quoted in the LA Times as saying, I think 99.9% of pumas do not use humans as prey. Clearly they don't, otherwise we'd have far more people killed in the West. And then the cougar management guidelines that say sport hunting does not reduce attacks on humans. And here are the data. This is what is so surprising. There have only been 18 human mortalities by mountain lions from 1980 to 2015 in North America. 1990. Sorry, what did I say?
1980.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And then lastly, we have an ongoing Front Range mountain lion study here in Colorado. So Boulder, Jefferson County, where there's Dr. Matt Aldridge has mountain lions radio collared. And I've done co-presentations with him several times. And his implications are really interesting if you ever get a chance to hear him talk. But essentially, and High Country News actually did a video of him. So if you go to that website, you can find it. But what he's finding is mountain lions live really well with us humans. They go into the open space during the daytime, and at night when we're asleep, they come down and they eat the raccoons, the cats, the skunks, the deer, the occasional dog. But and in the daytime they go back up. And so if they can live with us, we can sure live with them. And so and I just, this last year, Colorado Parks and Wildlife had proposed to do a mountain lion killing study over a 5 to 9 year period, basically from Canyon City to Leadville. And it was a poorly designed study. They weren't even gonna have the mountain lions radio collared. They just were gonna go in and kill 50% of the mountain lions and just see what happened to see if it would increase the mule deer population. They had a completely deficient public process. They tried to sneak it into a Craig hearing without giving the public 30 days notice, which they're supposed to do under state law. And so we asked them about that, so they continued the hearing from Craig, which is on the border with Utah, which is not very accessible. So we said, would you please continue the hearing to January in Denver, so everyone, this is going to be highly contentious, you need to have a fair public process. And they said, no way. We're going to hold the next hearing. Yeah, you're right. We didn't give 30 days notice. We're going to have it in our November hearing in Ray, Colorado, which is 7 miles from the Nebraska border. And it was absolutely infuriating. And luckily, our very smart attorneys figured out that we could go to the Department of Regulatory Affairs and ask that a cost-benefit analysis be done, because the Division of Wildlife's own biologists have already studied this issue of predation. And there's other studies that have looked at mountain lion and mule deer predation, and there was lots of problems. Anyway, so we got the study stopped. But here's what they were sort of showing to the public. They had radio collared over 1,000 mule deer. Of those, 873 survived. 75 died of unknown causes. 69 died of mountain lions. Well, mountain lions eat mule deer. I don't think that's a crisis. I think we have to be real. But they were like, oh, well, mountain lions are the biggest source of mortality for this population, which A, isn't true, and B, because they eat deer, that's okay. That's not a problem. We shouldn't go in and kill half the mountain lions. That's just preposterous. So anyway, we got that study stopped. It's coming back again this year, so we are on high alert for that. So how do you hunt and kill a mountain lion? Well, half the room in here could tell you better than me, but this is what I've been told is basically, where ravines where mule deer come down or whatever prey come down, that's typically where the mountain lions are gonna hang out and watch for the mule deer. And they will set dogs on a track that they find And in Colorado, you're permitted to have 8 dogs, and they use these radio-collared devices. And the dogs basically bay the mountain lion into a tree or cliff, and then the outfitters bring the hunters in to shoot the lion. So I got criticized last night for not showing this slide, so I put it in. This is the state of Colorado. These are the mountain lion hunting units. Each of these units has a quota. And once the quota is filled, then you can't hunt any more lions. This is Colorado's lion hunting quota over time. So this is 1980 right here. This is 2015 right here. So, you know, basically this trajectory. This is when we got them to reduce it, but my concern is it's going back up. It's creeping back up every year, and I'm very frustrated about that. And this is, you know, the total hunted lions in Colorado from 1980 to 2015. These are the ones hunted by sport hunters. So what effect does hunting have on individuals and families? And this was also a big bone of contention last night. So these are all the studies. I did not make this up, guys. These are all the studies. Lambert, this was done with Mike Wolf's lab in Montana, David Stoner, these are both Utah. Hillary Cooler, this is Washington, Robinson and DeSimone. This is Montana, and those last two, Walgus and Robinson, these are Washington. So here are what these studies say. When you hunt, it doesn't just kill one individual. If you kill a female that has dependent kittens, and remember those kittens are dependent on their mother, at least 12 months, then you leave those kittens orphaned, and then they die of dehydration, predation, or exposure or starvation. And when you remove the adult lions from a population, from a local area, you create a vacuum which draws in an influx of these subadult and usually male cats. And when those cats come in, there's a lot of what's called intraspecific aggression. There is anyway with mountain lion populations. They're always vying for territory and for mates. But when there's a vacancy, what this Washington State studies have shown is you get a whole bunch of these young males that pile up on top of each other, and they commit infanticide, so they kill the kittens from the previous sire. The reason that they do that is so that they can pass on their genetic material with the female, but sometimes they'll get into fights with the female and kill the female. So the upshot is there's a lot of social chaos when a mountain lion is hunted, and that can be really tragic for these kittens. So I'm just going to end pretty much with sort of values, and these are studies that have been done here in Colorado. 3 different studies. So this was Howard Zinn, 1996, did this on behalf of what was then the Division of Wildlife, and he found a majority of respondents had positive attitudes towards mountain lions and were likely to believe that mountain lions are a sign of a healthy environment and pose little real risk to people living near them. This was a poll done in Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico, and most people found that mountain lions are the best representative of the Southern Rockies. And then in 2006, Division of Wildlife did another survey, and they found that 96% of Coloradoans appreciate knowing that mountain lions live here, even if they never see one. And so this is sort of the vision. We need more advocates. We need more advocate biologists. We need increased public awareness. We need fair representation. We need more democratic decision-making. We certainly do not have this in Colorado or even at the federal level. Wildlife processes are not democratic by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that's where a lot of problems come. And I don't know how we're going to fix that. But we got to fix that because it's just going to, it's just going to keep butting heads. So that's what I got, and I really appreciate you all coming out, and thanks to the lion hunters that are here and coming out and listening again, and I just encourage everyone to be very civil, and we'll have a great night. Thanks.
So much, Wendy.
You're welcome.
So thank you to Wendy. That was really great. Thank you everyone for holding your questions till the end. Our people at Grassroots will get our microphone for us and we'll go into Q&A. A little before we go into Q&A though, I just want to reiterate that it's a civil discussion, civil discourse. We also, it's a family place too. We have our awesome kids here who stuck it out for all that science. And yeah, be that as it may, I hope everybody has a great time and gets their questions answered. So I'm going to bring up our mic right now. I guess I'll do it. So, here. And so this isn't going to actually amplify into the room. This is just so you'll be heard through Grassroots recording, which will be played on the radio.
Okay, so I'll just talk loud. When you say the decisions are democratic, are you saying them that are bureaucratic?
So the way
Tell us a little more about that.
Colorado Parks and Wildlife and almost every state agency is set up the same way, where you have a wildlife commission. That wildlife commission is appointed. They have, so there's no representation. So often what happens is you get a very skewed board of people that have sort of one viewpoint, and then we have one token woman conservationist on that commission. And so it can be very frustrating. It's sort of like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service right now. I feel like they're sort of in the same mindset of they're being heavily pressured by agriculture and hunting interests, and the vast majority of the public is not heard. Over 2 million people wrote to the Fish and Wildlife Service and said, please do not delist wolves, and they did it anyway. And so, and then, Congress tried to, for example, through this must-pass budget bill, put on 2 writers on that bill trying to delist wolves, and that would have prevented citizens from ever being litigation or having any other say in decision making, and that is not democratic representation by any stretch of the imagination.
So you mean those positions should be elected by the public?
That might be one way to do it. Yeah, I'm not sure. But that might be. I mean, we've got to have a system that represents all the people and not just some of the people.
A hand back here.
So how can citizens like us help to change that? Do you have any
The decision-making processes. Well, I think. I mean,
change that system?
I feel like, with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, what happens is they have these hearings, and they have them like in the wintertime, they have them in Denver, and then the rest of the year they have them all over the state. But it's during the week when most people are working and can't attend those. Most people who have a job can't go to those hearings and drive several hours to a hearing. So, they need to make it so that people can either appear, remotely or they have it on the weekend, it's just we're cut off from it. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I think it's a very hard problem.
Jeremy, I saw her hand go up first, but you're right after.
This lady up here she's been waiting a long time too.
I just wanted to ask, who do we appeal to? Do we write our congressman, or what's the channel to address this?
To address the rulemaking?
Representation. Mm-hmm.
That might be a good way. I mean, start talking to, the governor is who controls the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, but, Fish and Wildlife Service, start talking to your elected representative.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say. You're welcome.
So we'll be right after you.
So Wendy, I was at your presentation last night, and something you left out tonight, I see a lot of new faces in here. Can you tell us or inform the people that didn't hear last night what the estimated overall populations of mountain lions in the state of Colorado are again?
Okay, these are numbers that Colorado Parks and
Correct. What were they?
this is what Colorado Parks and Wildlife. These are, I don't know that, so these are estimations, and here's the problem.
You told us last night.
Okay, I'm going to get to it, but let me talk. What we know, this is how you study mountain lions. You put a radio collar on them.
Can you answer what you told everybody last night, the numbers, what they were estimated?
I will tell you when I get to the end of my explanation, please. So in order...
5,000 to
Sir, if you could let
7,000.
Wendy talk, please.
I think it was 5,000 to 7,000. And then what was harvested in the state?
So this is how so in order to estimate a mountain lion population, you have to put radio collars on lions, and so it's called capture, mark, recapture. And so we have one study in Colorado where we know what the population is, and that's on the Uncompahgre Plateau because of Ken Logan's study. And so what typically happens, and this is not just in Colorado, it's all states, so you find sort of a lion-rich area, you estimate the population, and then it gets extrapolated statewide. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife has estimated, and it's varied over the years. I've seen 3,500 to 5,000. I've seen 3,500 to 7,500. So it just depends on what year it is that they say what the population is. So
And Ken didn't have an estimation?
you'll have to ask Ken.
Okay. And can you tell us what were the harvest numbers?
So did you, I showed those harvest numbers.
No.
Yeah, I did. Let me go back to it. So,
Yeah, you showed 40 years, yeah, last year.
no,
So is that chart?
I showed you two different slides.
Next chart.
Okay, so the quota numbers, okay, this is how you read a graph. This is 1980. This is the value point for 1980. It's less than 100. This is about 250, okay? So this is 2005. This is the value point. So then you take that and you go back and it's like, what, 200 there, right? This is 2015. That's the value point. You run it back and it's about 400.
It's been the same for the last 3 years.
So
It's real stable.
I'll show you those data this way. So 1980, less than 100. 1985, what? 125. So do you see what?
Do you happen to have a graph that show the population density across the
I don't have that.
35 years?
I don't have the population density. You're going to have to ask Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
So we're gonna, thank you. We're gonna give this lady a chance to talk.
Well, you kind of got on the subject you were asking me, because I didn't remember or know how many, but apparently you feel we don't have enough mountain lions, or the hunters. I don't understand the argument here. I'm an outsider, just listening to this, coming to the program. I don't
Right.
understand why the hunters, I mean, they have a quota that's being hunted.
Right.
You feel they're hunting too many? I don't understand where the balance is. I understood the wolves better last week because the farmers said they're eating all their cows, but I'm losing.
But they're not eating all their cows. I showed you guys that
No,
too.
Only the sick and weak.
apparently the complaint is that you don't want them to hunt as much and the hunters want to hunt more. Is that the
Right,
whole
right.
problem?
So,
Or is there something more?
So there's a whole industry which I haven't talked about. These outfitters and guides, they make a profit, and they can tell you how much for every guided hunt to go out and kill a mountain lion. But that has ecosystem effects, and it has effects on a whole subpopulation of mountain lions.
You think they're hunting too much.
You get chaos. If you hunt one mountain lion, you disrupt the social structure for all the mountain lions in that area. And that's what those studies were that I showed you all. So the Utah, the Washington, the Montana studies are showing that when you take out even one mountain lion, you get social chaos. You get infanticide, you get kittens that are left to starve. There's a lot of problems when you take out even just one mountain lion. So
You're advocating no hunting.
I haven't said that, but I personally don't think that we should hunt mountain lions. And
Do you disagree with the quotas they have set for the state? Are you asking to change that? Or?
So the Humane Society of the United States is opposed to trophy hunting. So, and I think we should go on to someone else.
And for what it's worth, we're going to try to work our way around all sections of the room and keep coming back again and again. But
Not unlimited time. I will, at some point, we're going to cut it off because, and then I will have people come up and talk to me because I know that's.
This corner had some hands up.
Yeah.
And just so we know, when we ask a question, when they're responding, we don't talk over them. That means mic privileges, like kindergarten, get taken away, but go for it.
Thank you. So when you state that these predators, when they move in the other areas, there's this chaos that goes on, and these toms come in and kill other toms, and that's where we have a point of discontention, because it's like we talked last night. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience in these guides and outfitters, and we're not seeing that. And we're seeing 3 toms harvested in a quarter of a mile that are all mature toms that were all living together before we harvest them. And that's where a lot of these facts that Wendy has and that we see every day, they contradict big time. And that's why we're here to try to also educate people that are in this room, like this lady here that says she doesn't know. Well, the facts that were presented in these type of settings aren't necessarily, and for the most case, aren't accurate. And that's where we're frustrated. And that is this information in studies coming from Montana, Idaho, Washington, etc., or the studies from Colorado.
Back sections. That's all you in the back right now. This way.
Evening, my name is James Bear. From down on Glenwood Springs.
Can't hear you.
Louder? A little louder?
Yes.
Thank you.
If it's a hunting, non-hunting debate, we're in Aspen, Colorado, so I think there's a lot of people that would be on the non-hunting end of the spectrum. But as far as mountain lions go, I kind of wonder a little bit, as the population of Colorado is exploding, these lions are getting pushed more and more into rural areas. Personally, on our place, we do a little bit of lion hunting. We use hounds, and we treat 7 lions, different lions, in an afternoon. So personally, where I come from, there's lots of lions. We also raise sheep, and lions predate on domestic sheep quite a bit. The worst I've ever seen is when I was a boy. I can remember walking out through the sagebrush and picking up 98 head of lambs. I'm not just saying an estimation, that's how many there were. We stacked them up like cordwood. That the lion had gone through and killed that many in one night. So they can practice killing. They can do a lot of damage really fast. They're really, they are a majestic animal. You know, I gotta say, when you're hunting lions, there's lots of rules that you have to follow. These outfitters or these hunters, they're not just out there running a whole bunch of dogs and shooting every lion out of every tree and off every cliff. There's lots of rules that they follow, and that's, to an outfitter, that's their livelihood. You know, they like to be in business. They'd like it to be sustainable. So, you know, I'd say that outfitters want a sustainable lion population. That's how they make a living. You're not going to find a whole lot of better stewards of the land than hunters and fishermen and ranchers and farmers. That's how we make a living, and we hope to be there for a long time. My family's been here for 5 generations. I've studied predators, my whole life, and my father before me, and his father before him, and his father before him. And just please know that these hunters are responsible when they're going out. They're not out there shooting kittens. They really discourage shooting female lions. A big tom is what you're looking for, and they're pretty selective. There is a little bit of a test. You can't just go buy a hunting license. You have to be educated a little bit more about lions and how to hunt them, more than to get a mule deer license or an elk license or a fishing license. There's a little bit more involved. So I just want to put it out there that the hunting community is responsible, and I don't think lions are going away. I'm not going to jump into the argument too much, but I just want to let you know. Also, got a lot of experience with mule deer and calf elk. And lions eat the heck out of them, and I'm out there on the ground all the time, and I see it all the time, year round. And, that's my personal experience from eyes on the ground.
Oh.
Sam, we'll get that and back to this corner.
Thank you again for your talk. This gentleman brought up a really excellent point that a lot of what may differ from the science. What I'm wondering, and I've seen this in several topics with wolves, with cougars. What I'm wondering is if there's a structure or a way that folks on the ground can enter into the scientific process to get her, if there's structures in place, and if not, how can we get those structures in place to maybe rectify this divide?
I was just telling some folks the other day, I was looking at research in New Hampshire where they had done a citizen science project where citizens were photographing bobcats that they had seen and turning them into the University of New Hampshire researchers. And at the same time, researchers had radio-collared cats, and they wanted to test whether citizen science worked as opposed to the radio-collared studies. And they found that the radio-collared studies was far more accurate than the citizen science. So, and there's a whole host of studies that indicate that anecdotal data is simply that. So I don't know, I mean, it depends on what citizen science you're talking about, right? So there's different projects that different universities and are doing with citizen science, whether it's the Audubon bird count or looking at there's this idea of phrenology because of global warming. So when do plants flower? It's changing because of global warming. So that's some of the ways that citizen science is done. I don't know of any citizen science mountain lion study, and I'm not the person to answer that question. So that's the best I can do. You're welcome.
I just also, wanted to say thank you for your presentation. A lot of great information. I had a couple things I wanted to mention. I wanted to really applaud this gentleman for what he had to say. In the state of Colorado Parks and Wildlife, that is the forefront of scientific information we have on our animals, for better or worse. And 98%, I believe, of that money is coming from hunters and fishers and people that are using those resources. And so I think that's very important to recognize. I also wanted to say, as far as the Department of Colorado Parks and Wildlife goes, and Fish and Wildlife, the public hearings, I have a lot of experience with both of them. The public hearings are fairly inaccessible. I'm happy to admit that. But for every single one of those public hearings, there is an internet liaison, so to speak, that if you contact them, which their information is out there and accessible, you contact them and you express your concerns, someone will respond and tell you, a confirmation to receive that your message has been received. Whether or not it's heard is up to them, but they will recognize that they received what you had to say. So those opportunities are out there. I also really have a question about this graph right here. I noticed the timeline kind of coincides with really the disappearance of the last known remaining wolves in Colorado. And I'm curious if the increase in mountain lions might have something to do with the decrease of our other apex predator, the wolves. And once the wolves left, were the mule deer and the elk populations able to rise to a point to sustain a lot more mountain lions, which allowed the increase of quotas from Parks and Wildlife. I mean, I understand a lot of scientific knowledge and effort goes into these quotas, Parks and Wildlife issues, and I'm willing to recognize that there's a lot of gaps and there's a lot of information missing in the state of Colorado regarding to mountain lions. But I'm just curious if you personally think the increase of mountain lions and the increase of hunting may have something to do with the decrease of our other apex predators.
So the last wild wolf was killed in Colorado in the mid-1940s. These are when the Division of Wildlife started collecting data that fairly accurately for mountain lions. And these come from Jerry Apker. How many know Jerry Apker? He's the one that collects this data. And basically before 1982, the data on mountain lions was not accurately kept. The mule deer population in Colorado and the West is on decline. It is not because of predation. It is because of all those reasons that I've talked about before. It's because of humans. Because of habitat loss. It's because of road building. It's because of global warming. It's because of fire suppression. It's because of livestock competition. It's because of disease from livestock. There's a whole host of reasons why mule deer are declining in Colorado and the West. The Colorado Parks and Wildlife get about 65% of its revenue from hunter dollars. They also get Pittman-Robertson funding and other federal funding. Some of that funding comes from the sale of ammunition, and not all that ammunition is for hunting. So they get a lot of GOCO money. So all of us pay taxes that support our federal lands. Lots of people were involved in the passage of the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Water Act and the Bald Eagle Protection Act. Lots of people are involved in conservation. And I think it's revisionist history for hunters to claim that they're the only ones supporting wildlife. That is absolutely not true if you look at the history and you look at the data. It's this mantra that hunters have, and they repeat it over and over as if it's true, and it's not true. There were women doing conservation work in the 1900s here in Colorado. I actually did my master's thesis on it. You know, saving Mesa Verde National Park. Lots of women doing with the Audubon at the turn of the century, getting people not to shoot all the birds because women were using the feathers in their hats. So it's a very rich history of a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and and I think we need to embrace that reality.
Now, Wendy, you brought up study after study after study after study. One of those studies is Washington State. Washington State does not hunt cougars. It's not a viable study. You also went on to say Ken Logan and his study on the Uncompadre Plateau is underway. You've also said how Ken Logan is a very, very intelligent man. I have Ken Logan's study in my hand, released December 1st, 2015. The newest study put out on Colorado's mountain lions. In the introduction, on page 2, Ken says, sport hunting is beneficial to cougar population, mule deer population, livestock, and people conflicts. It contradicts everything, any other study that you have. 34 pages of it.
Do you have a question?
I want an answer of what you think of that.
Well, first of all, they hunt mountain lions in Washington. Yep. They do it, they have these public safety removal areas where they hound hunt. They also hunt them using predator calls. Rich Beausoleil is the wildlife manager there. We just were involved in a huge brouhaha in Washington in 2015. In April, their commission decided, without giving the public any notice, that they were going to raise the cougar hunting quota in the units where wolves lived by up to 100%. So this was part of a season-setting hearing. They gave the public no notice, and in a matter of 2 minutes raised the quota and didn't give the public any opportunity to comment on it. It's all in the Washington News. You can Google it. It's everywhere. And we went back with a whole coalition of folks, Center for Biological Diversity, Wolf Haven, a whole host of conservation groups in Washington state, and asked the commission to rescind their decision. We asked them 3 different times. They did not do it. And finally, we sent a formal rulemaking petition to Governor Jay Inslee, who reversed their decision just a couple months ago. So they certainly do hunt cougars in Washington state. They hunt the quota and is about, or the hunter kill is about 200 cats a year. So
we live in Colorado.
Right. So you asked me to answer that question. So
This study was produced in Colorado.
Right.
For benefit of the cougar. Produced by Kim Logan.
Right, and I know what the study says. That
Promoting.
I know what his study says, sir.
And you don't want us to sport hunt cougars. You honestly believe that if we take care of sport hunting of mountain lions, they will take care of themselves.
So what Ken Logan's study says is that a sustainable hunting amount is between 8 and 11%, which is far below what Colorado Parks and Wildlife uses in each of its game management units. So it's more like the offtake is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I'm a little exhausted. So let's.
We're doing one more question.
One more question. I mean, I feel like if like I'll do one more question, but I feel like we can.
There's a lot of passion.
Yeah, no, I get it.
The hunters,
I get it, but there's.
Mountain lions.
But I think that we're not going to come. I feel like we have 2 different value systems. This is not the forum where we're going to resolve this issue, right?
What's the point of this forum? What is your point of this forum? To educate people to the truth or to hear both sides of it? What is
right.
I might just jump in here. My name is Will Roush. Some of you guys probably recognize me from last night. I'm the conservation director of the Wilderness Workshop. And I think what we might do right now is just end the kind of the formal question and answer period, because we're about 20 minutes over our normal time. And Wendy will probably stick around for a little bit longer if folks have specific questions. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. It's great to have these presentations. This is a really good forum for folks to learn, and appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
Thanks.